Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me for what I've entitled Putting the Human Back into Golf. And this is a very special presentation for me because what I'm going to share during this presentation is really a gradual discovery for me over 30 years of coaching, where I have had this continual drive to try and find the most natural and effective way to help golfers play the game. And obviously, a lot of that is down to how they swing the golf club and how they move during different aspects of the golf game that they get to play. And so I feel that it's a very interesting thing. I'm sure you can relate to this. As you learn something, you think, wow, I've learned something that's really important. It seems to make such a difference. And then as you research and you discover something, you realize that how little you really knew, because suddenly there's this avalanche of information out there that helps you understand things even more. And that's really been my continual journey for 30 years. And I've no doubt that if we meet in 5 years' time, there'll be things I have learned that again will help even more at that point. But right now, what I'm going to be able to share with you in this presentation is really quite profound. Some of the results that I'm getting with golfers is really quite amazing. And that is in all areas of the game, from the short game through to the long game. And the exciting thing is that it is happening with less thought. Therefore, it's feeling more natural. Therefore, it's feeling more repeatable. And as a result of that, of course, it becomes a lot more fun as well. So this really is a very special topic for me. It's having a profound impact in areas of my own game when I get to go and play. And as I say, really quite interestingly, is that for golfers that, that sometimes I haven't found easy to help, it's been a challenge. They're now some of the golfers that I'm getting much more effective at helping. And actually, to be honest, they're the most important ones for you as a coach, because I always try to take the mindset that no matter how somebody is having a difficult time with their game in a lesson environment, it's not actually their problem. It's my problem. It's a challenge for me to solve. I've got to get more effective. I've got to understand more. I've got to be able to communicate better. Whatever it is, it's not their problem. It's my problem. And therefore, the golfer that is having the hardest time is my greatest teacher, because it really pushes me to say, right, what is the message? What's the information this golfer needs to help them? And that's what drives me, quite frankly. And so as difficult as that is, they're the ones I love working with, because also as I make the breakthroughs with the golfers that are having the hardest time, it helps everybody else as well. And so really, as I say, one of the reasons I'm so excited to be able to share with you this information is that I've now seen a whole new level of help going on with these golfers. And as I said, very interestingly, across different areas of the game. And so that particularly is exciting for me. And so I hope that as we go through here, what I'm going to share with you is some really key information, very simple. I hope you'll find it. And I hope if you just follow the logic of what I'm going to share with you, I hope it will resonate with you. I hope you'll say, wow, actually, yeah, if I can just actually get out of my traditional thinking box with golf, if I can, for a moment, just put to one side the way you'd normally think about getting better at the game, how you'd normally think about improving your golf swing, just put that to one side for me for the moment. As I often say in seminars, and if you don't like what I say, I can promise you when you go to the door to leave, you can pick up all that old information and carry on. So I give you the same invitation today, that just try and put everything to one side for a moment that you think you know about improving your golf swing, and just follow along with me and follow along with the theory, and then follow along with some of the practical that I will go through as well. And I hope that as we go through the logic, it would just start to resonate. You go, actually, I can see where this is coming from, and I can see how this will help. And if you do that, I think you'll build some foundations that I think you'll find quite profound, actually. And so that's my wish for this presentation. As I said, what I'll do is I'm going to present the philosophy, if you like, the ideas. I'm going to do a little bit of demonstration. I've purposely done this indoors because I want you to be able to do this indoors as well as you follow along with me. And I'm actually going to give you a few movements to practice as well, which you can do indoors and you can do at the golf range as well. So it's kind of a bit of practical, bit of theory as well as we go through. At any time you have questions, I won't really look at the questions until the end. And depending on time, hopefully I'll get through and answer those. But if you have any questions at any time, just put them in the chat box. And by the way, introduce yourself. Go ahead and just introduce. I'd love to know where you're listening from, because I know we have a very international audience nowadays. So I'd love to know where you're listening from. Introduce yourself quickly. Maybe just tell us your golf handicap or your average score. It'd be great to know that. And that's a way of everybody seeing who's there. And also, if you have any questions as we go through the presentation, just please put them in and I'll do my best to find them and answer them. And if I don't get to answer them in this presentation, I will take the time to look at them and come back to you and give you an answer for them as well. So please, as I say, go ahead and put those in the chat box for us. Okay, so the title is Putting the Human Back into Golf, the 4 movements that will have you hitting solid and powerful shots every time, because that's what I'm going to share with you today. It's actually really one overriding thing you need to grasp, but there are 4 movements that allow that one thing to happen, and that's what we're going to go through. And let me just elaborate on, and let me just take the screen away for a moment so you can see me in a bit more full glory. What I mean by putting the human back into golf, and this will come up as we go through some of the slides. So I'll use some of the slides just to help you maybe bring some order and organization to what I go through. But what I mean by that is that I feel like we have lost our way. There is some amazing technology about, don't get me wrong, I'm a lover of technology in terms of some of the information it can give us. And it can be very helpful sometimes, but I think we can lose ourselves in it. And I think we lose the power of our own human experience, meaning our body and our brain and our mind. And I'll maybe differentiate on those as we go through. But we end up not knowing how to use our own body. We end up trying to copy other players' swings. We end up looking at data and we try and make adjustments based on that data, based on that information. And to me, that's very surface level. And so it has a place. There's no question it's proven to be effective in situations. But my whole drive, as I said, really for 30 plus years is to try and go a little bit deeper than that. And that's when I say that you learn something and then you actually, as you learn one thing, you go, oh my word, there's another few layers to peel back here to go in a bit deeper, to discover more information. So I'm really interested in that. How deep can we keep going? Because I find that the deeper we go, the simpler it actually gets and the more effective it gets. Now, here is one of the challenges with that. And this is what I mean by putting the human back, is like finding out how do we function as a human being? How do we move? What's our anatomy wanting us to do, rather than what is being told to us that we should do to make ourselves look a certain way in a golf swing or achieve a certain swing position. I'm trying to go from a different angle here. What is actually our human body, the anatomy, designed to do? So that's really what this is all about. And so that discovery for me of going into that a little bit deeper is really what this presentation is all about. And if we can do that, I think then you'll take ownership of your own movement, you'll take ownership of your own swing, and that's really, really important. I'll give you a little saying here, and if you're making notes, this is definitely something to write down, and that is that no matter how much you try and copy a tour player's swing, and I know a lot of us get trapped in that. Sometimes we see a tour player swing, we love their position, we love the way they look, and we try and copy some of that. But no matter how much you try and copy a tour player's swing, you will never feel like them. Let me say that again. No matter how much you copy a tour player's swing, you will never feel like them because it's not your swing. And that really leads to a very important point. When you start to take ownership of your own swing and you start to understand how you ought to be moving based on true anatomy, you start to feel your movement. You start to feel your own swing. And that is a very different experience. It's only when you do that, in my opinion, can you then own your swing, which then means you can actually take charge of it and get the best results from it. And so that's really, again, one of the things I want you to pay attention to, not just as I go through the information today, but as you go and practice it. What does this feel like? And I always try and move my clients from a place of thinking to feeling. Try and get out of thinking. Thinking is telling ourselves what to do, almost as if our brain knows better. Like, oh yeah, you need to do this because I saw this information, I saw this tip, I've read this information. That's what you need to do. And you're giving yourself this instructional time to do something. And you're almost in your head the whole time rather than in your body. And the golf swing is a body movement. At the end of the day, it is a body movement. And we've got to be able to feel that body movement. I'm just going to move back and start to be able to move a bit here. We want to be able to feel that movement as we go through our swing and not get lost in our head. That's really, really quite key for me. So the human experience is being able to get into our body and feel our body movement based on the true anatomy. And I'll elaborate that as we go through. But that's my wish, is to get you back to that place and not so reliant on technology, not copying positions of others. And I'm going to elaborate on that. So let's just actually let's just go through a couple of things just to make sure I stay on track as well. And let's just bring up another slide here. Okay, so I've probably covered this, but here's some of the outcomes I'd like you to get from the webinar. Is I want you to feel enthusiastic and inspired about a simpler approach to improving your swing. And I believe that's what will happen if you follow along with me. I think you'll actually go, wow, actually this could be simpler for me. This could help me get a better outcome. And an understanding of why you've not been able to get lasting changes in the past. And now I've really sort of touched upon the edge of that, because if you're actually always trying to search for a position, trying to copy somebody else's swing, and you haven't layered the foundation of actually what's behind that, what's underneath that, what's the foundation for it, then you're not building those positions, those copying ideas onto anything solid, and therefore it doesn't last. It simply collapses. Let me just again bring myself back into shot a bit more here, because the foundation, think of it this way. Think of a building. If a building has solid foundations, I'll put it this way: you'd never build a building without solid foundations. Not if you want it to last and stand up. You would keep those, you'd make sure those foundations are good. Then you build the building on top of those foundations. It's solid. It's now going to last. It's going to last for a lifetime, most probably, and beyond. The golf swing is the same. If we are searching for positions, we're trying to get in a certain place, a certain plane, a certain amount of turn, a certain amount of, positions, whatever they may be, wrist positions, wrist set, lag, any of those things we're trying to do, if we haven't actually layered the foundations properly, those things, quite frankly, are not sustainable. You're not going to keep them there. You're going to still be reliant on timing, and of course, timing is very much a part of the golf swing. I know that, but let me actually rephrase that. You're going to be very much reliant on compensation, where you're because the foundations aren't there. You're going to have to be compensating to be able to square the club up to hit the shot you want to hit. And I know that because I have felt that time and time again in my own golf game over the years. But as I have learned how to layer the foundations in properly, I actually don't feel the need to compensate. I don't feel there's that compensation going on. And I'm going to go into that in a deeper level, particularly around some of the short games. I think it's really quite easy to understand in that area there. So we want to, again, this foundation, think of that building. If you imagine trying to put an extension onto a house without putting the proper foundations in, it might be okay for a while, but if a stressful situation of a storm comes along, it could be knocked over. And that's like a golf swing. If we put the right foundations in, then everything we build on top of that has a reasonable chance of working and repeating itself. If we don't, it might be okay in a relaxed situation, when we're practicing. And that's why, by the way, sometimes you can be practicing and hit the ball so well in your practice session, you go to the first tee and it's just like something else has taken over and it's gone. You just suddenly don't have that golf game anymore. And again, I put my hand up to that. I've 100% had that experience on many, many occasions. So if that's you, if you feel like you're practicing well on the golf range or even in a friendly game, but the moment there's a bit of stress there, you can't repeat the same thing. I'm pretty sure I'm going to tell you that's to do with the foundations that have been layered, and you're just trying to get positions into your swing that you haven't built a solid foundation. That's the extension on the house that's not going to last in a storm. Okay, so that's really, again, is what this presentation is all about, is helping you understand these fundamentals. And by the way, they're not the fundamentals that you might be thinking of golf. They're all important: the grip, the base, the setup, all those things. Absolutely. This is slightly different. This is looking at the human body and actually what's required out of that human body. Okay, so let's just move on and just bring up our next slide here. Okay, so again, I would have touched upon some of this already, but I just want to make sure you have some organization here to follow. So why the human approach is different. Okay, so I'm saying we're trying to put the human back into golf. So traditional approach, which I've touched upon a bit here, really that traditional approach, if you watch different videos, you maybe have traditional lessons, again, they all have a place. There's not a case of something being better or not. It's really a case of what you're interested in. Are you interested in getting down deeper to the truth? You're interested in more of a quick fix type of scenario. So, but most of the information comes from the golf industry. Most of what we see and hear comes from the golf industry. You go, with Scott, that's logical, isn't it? That's what it should do because we're golfers. We're trying to play golf. And that's really a fascinating thing for me because I've always actually wanted to go deeper than that. And now, as I said, in the last 5, 6, 7 years, some of the information I've learned has really helped me take deeper than that, because here's what's really interesting. Some of the tour players that we are using to get that information from, whether we're getting their data from tracking devices, whether we're getting it from 3D devices, or whatever, we're getting it from them. The truth is, a lot of the time, those tour players don't really know deep down what they do. They don't really know. They couldn't explain it to you. They think they can, and that's not disrespectful. I'll give you a really clear example of that in a moment. But they don't really know what they do. And so, therefore, if they can't explain it, how can we be expected to copy that and make sense of that? And let me put that into context. One of the things I do is I play a game when I do seminars. I call it the standing up game. And what I do is I get people, have somebody come up at the front of the audience. We get them to lay down on the floor on their back. And we bring a couple of other people up and we say, explain to this person, let me just bring myself back in here. Explain to this person on the floor, how do you stand up? So the person's laying flat on the back, and there's two other people come, but you've got to explain to this person how to stand up. Now, bearing in mind, the two people who are explaining know exactly how to stand up because they do it every day. And it is hilarious because there they are, and I get the person on the floor, so you've got to take it literally what they say, can you actually do what they're asking you to do? And after a while, they're rolling over, they've got knees in there, they cannot get them off the ground. Because the truth is, they don't actually know how their body moves and how their body works. And so I use that analogy to say that sometimes, even though the information is coming from the golf industry, maybe we don't really understand enough of what's going on. And again, are we looking, here's my proposal, are we potentially looking too surface level at what's going on? And therefore, we're looking at the decoration of the house. We're looking at the windows of the house, which is lovely, but we don't really know how it's been built. And maybe the person who's sharing it with us, maybe they don't really know how it's been built as well, because for them, it's not been difficult. It's happened quite naturally. Does that make sense? So there's some of where I'm coming from here. So if that is resonating with you, that's really what we're going to go into to help you understand a little bit more. And here's the other thing, is that sometimes some of these best players are quite often getting injured. So even though they're exceptional at playing the game and exceptional at, hitting the ball, prodigious distances with great control, sometimes that is at the cost of their body. And I personally am not a fan of that. I would rather try and find a way of moving that is more in line with the true anatomy, that will produce great results, but actually be a bit more effective for the body as well, so the body can withstand that. So that's part of where we're heading as well here. So I hope that by using your body more effectively, you're less chance to get injured. Okay, so again, that's some of my thought process, some of what we're gonna start with here. So with that traditional approach, so really sort of saying that's why I think it's a problem. And you end up, by the way, with lots to try and remember and think when you're trying to get lots of positions right. You know, again, whether it be a wrist set, whether it be a plane thing, whether it be a turn thing, and invariably, most of the people I meet are trying to think of or remember more than one thing in their golf swing. So if that's you, put your hand up. If you're trying to remember several things, again, my hand goes up for that many times in the past year. Something I didn't think I was thinking about a lot, but just like, wow, when I went through that, crikey, I'm thinking about quite a few different things here. And again, my promise to you is that if you embrace what I'm sharing with you in this presentation, my promise to you is that you will be able to reduce a lot of what you think about, because once you start to move your body in the appropriate way, your brain and your body become aligned. And that's a very important thing. Your brain and your body basically become one, and they work together to the same goal. I'm going to stay with that point for a moment. It's quite important. When this is going to come up again later, but while I'm on it, let me address it a little bit for you now. So I'm actually going to show you this with a wedge. Many of you may have had the experience when you're playing pitch shots around the green, maybe 20 to 50 yards long, that type of thing. They can play havoc for many golfers because the precision required to hit that pitch shot well is it's quite a precise thing. You've got to get that club to come pretty much back exactly where you want it to come. Okay, and actually interesting, when you do it in the right way, you actually increase your margin for error because of how the golf club works. But it's got to be pretty precise nonetheless. And so therefore, if you slightly miscue it and you hit halfway up the ball, that thinned shot on a 20 or 30 yard shot can sometimes go double that distance. So it's quite extreme, the result you get. And the other way, you go sharp into the ground a bit early, that ball might only go a yard on a 30 or 40, 50 yard shot. And so the extremes in the result can be very extreme. Therefore, you end up, it can become a very mental thing. You become very anxious over that shot. However, when your brain, when you're moving in a way, let me rephrase that, when you're moving your body in a way where the brain says, based on what I'm trying to do here, this movement with the body is completely appropriate for what I want, the brain actually quietens down. And this is a very important part to grasp. This is what I'm talking about, the brain and the body becoming aligned. When we are moving our body based on trying to achieve some position, based on some concept, but it's not based on the true laws of how the anatomy works, when we're doing that, our brain is confused, okay? You must not underestimate, your brain knows precisely what it is you're trying to do, okay? Brain is clever. The brain is clever. You get to a shot, it can, you might give it the measurement with a laser. It can see how far you've got to go. It knows it's 30 yards. It can see the terrain that is in front of you, whether that be rough, whether it be a bunker, whether it be fairway, it can see it all. Pretty much based on your previous experience, it already has a pretty good idea of where that ball needs to land. And so the brain actually is amazingly clever at calculating all this stuff pretty quickly. And if you doubt that at all, just think about throwing something to somebody. You don't miscue that very often. If I gave you a ball and there was somebody who wanted to throw that ball to them, you'd pretty much throw exactly to their hand for them to catch it without any practice. That's your brain at work. Your brain is saying, there they are. That's what's in front of me. If I have to throw it over something, under something, you would do it pretty accurately. So your brain works all this information out very fast, gives the body the information like the body does it. Now, provided the body does the right thing, the brain will stay pretty quiet. So go back to the pitching analogy. When you are moving in pitching in line with the true anatomy for the shot at hand, the brain actually becomes nice and quiet. It actually doesn't interfere. However, when you start to move in a way that actually, again, as I say, might be based on some concept, some tip that isn't in line with anatomy, the brain says, whoa, hang on a minute, what are you doing? What are you doing? This doesn't feel right. for what the shot is at hand. And I often say it's the equivalent of that ball has moved. You know, if I move my body out of position, the brain is going, oh, hang on, did the ball just move? And then what happens is the brain gets involved and starts to make compensations to get the club back to where it thinks it needs to get it back to. That process of all those compensations going on, that's really where we can't control it. And then we might time it okay and hit a decent shot, but we can also be out by thinning or fatting it, and then the anxiety builds up. Okay, so having the brain and body aligned is actually a hugely critical thing. And again, if you follow along with what I'm going to say here, that's what you're going to experience. You're going to experience that brain and body becoming much, much more aligned. Okay, so that's one of the biggest things that we really want to try and achieve. All right. So the human approach really is working on foundational movements, not golf swings. When you work on the true movement of your body, the golf swing will appear. You don't need to work on the golf swing as much. Working on golf swings, as I said, that's superficial level. We want foundational movements. We want to put those foundations in that allow a good golf swing to come. And you know as well as I that no matter what you do about copying another tour player's swing, it's still going to look like your swing. You're not going to look like them. You're not going to feel like them, most importantly, and you're unlikely to look like them. And so we are all going to look different. It's important we take charge of our own swing. We can only do that with foundational movements. And I've said this to help you take ownership of your swing. I want you feeling, not thinking. And really, when you work on foundational movements, you're after just constant and gradual improvement. That's what you're after. Don't forget quick fixing. Forget trying to find the secret. Forget trying to make these amazing leaps. That may come wonderful if it does, okay? But don't worry about that. Don't worry about trying to shortcut things. Build the foundations properly. Build those foundations properly of how your body moves. When you do that, when you build that foundation properly, you will make improvement. I guarantee you will make improvement. And if you stick to them, you'll continue to make improvement. Because what happens is, as you make one change, again, let me just come in here. As you make one change to the fundamentals of how you move, when you do it in line with true anatomy, that one change will have a knock-on effect through the rest of the golf swing. If I know how to use my feet, my knees, my hips a little more effectively in the golf swing, if I know how to do that, that's going to change how my spine works. When my spine changes how it works, my shoulders will perform differently, my wrists will perform differently, etc. So do not underestimate that when you work with foundational things, if you are prepared to be patient enough, you will get a ripple effect through the rest of your swing. And probably what I've said there is probably the biggest challenge. Will you remain patient enough? Will you? That's the thing. Will you be prepared to stay patient to be able to let those changes come? Because let's be honest, we have got caught up in a society of instant gratification. I want it better today. I want it better now. And that may happen. In some of the work I do, occasionally that happens for people. They always leave better. But if they stick with it, they get better gradually and better and better and better and better. And I think that's what you're after. You don't want this up and down here. Better now, not so good tomorrow. Better now, not so good tomorrow. We want it gradual. And you do that by putting in those foundations properly. Okay. And just remember that, your body, your mind and body have been around for far longer than the golf swing. And so that's why I think it's sensible to actually have some understanding of that and look at how that is designed to move and what is the appropriate movement based on the task. The task is swinging the golf club and hitting the golf ball. What are the effective movements of anatomy that allow that to happen the most effective way so that our brain and body become aligned, so that we think less, we feel more, and have more consistency? That's what we're trying to do, okay? All right, so that's really the traditional versus the human approach, as I like to call it. Okay, so what are your risks if you don't follow this advice? Okay, now this is maybe fairly obvious, but let me just quickly whiz through those. You're going to be forever trapped searching for the next secret. That's what I've expressed already, is that we want these instant gratification. We keep looking at the next video, the next tip, etc., because we think there's a secret out there that's gonna fix us. And occasionally it does for someone. Occasionally it does. So great. That's why there's a place for all that stuff. But equally, I say sometimes the worst thing that can happen is you find something that works, because it will stop working most probably, not definitely, but most probably. And when it does, you are now hooked on this idea that there's another secret out there. And so you maybe just don't ever look for the true foundations. That's one of the risks you take if you do not follow the advice of looking for these fundamentals to bring the human back into your golf. You might always be working on something new. You probably have that experience now where you feel like you're always changing what you're working on. It's one thing this week, another thing next week. For some people, it's another thing on the next hole. You're probably going to feel like you have experience where you're overthinking and over-trying. Like I said, it ends up being a lot to remember. And again, you're trying to layer something into your golf swing that isn't built on foundations. Therefore, it is hard to do. Therefore, it could break down. And therefore, it feels like it's hard work. There's a lot to remember. I don't know anybody. I've never met anybody that says, "Oh, wow, I love overthinking. I love overtrying. That's enjoyable to me." No, I mean, I love thinking a lot about it a lot in my research and things like that. And actually, it's one of the biggest challenges for golf coaches is they tend to research a lot and think a lot. And that's not always great for their own game because they call this information. But again, what I've been able to do is gradually reduce that information for myself when I'm actually doing these fundamentals. So it makes a huge difference. So that brings enjoyment back to the game. When you're trying these different quick fixes, you get on this emotional roller coaster. You go round and round in loops or on this yo-yo performance up and down. And you get caught in what Einstein called the insanity trap, where you're expecting a better result tomorrow, but you keep repeating the actions of yesterday. And I love an expression, as a gentleman called Dr. Joe Dispenza says, you've got to break the habit of being yourself. And that's another note worth making down. If you are fed up, if you're tired of what I'm describing here, always looking for the fix, always looking for the secret, feel like your performance is up and down. If you're tired and fed up with that, you have got to break the habit of being yourself, okay? You have got to break the habit of being yourself. And so therefore, if what I'm saying to you in this presentation resonates with you, if you like the idea of going back to some true fundamental movements, it will feel different to you. You're going to need an element of patience, but that might be the new habit that you've got to build. And you're going to have to wrestle with yourself to break that habit of yourself that used to be there in order to develop the new habit. So remember, that's a key one. And I say it's expensive, not necessarily financially if you don't take this advice. It's expensive in the sense it's emotionally expensive. It can be expensive financially as well, because you're always looking for something new rather than sticking with something solid, okay? All right, now, if you do follow this, what can you expect? Well, certainly a golf swing that feels simple and reliable, because you won't be searching for lots of things. It will become simpler. And as you refine and improve the moves, like I said, with every small improvement you make, you get this nice ripple effect. It gets better and better throughout. So that's really powerful. So it will feel that way. It'll feel like golf swing that you own. And isn't that lovely? Again, forget trying to look like somebody else, copy somebody else. Find out what you need to do and own that. Okay, that's really, really key. You will get improved power and accuracy because what happens is when you are moving well, there's a natural coordination that comes with that. And therefore, you end up finding the sweet spot much better, much more frequently. That is for sure. You'll have less to work on. You can stop the searching. As I've said already, you'll be less prone to injury, because you'll be moving in a way the body's more designed to do that. And as we go through some of the movements, by the way, I'll just say to you, go gentle and slow, take your time with it. Again, we're not in a rush to do this. Or rather, I don't want you to be in a rush to this. I want you to take your time with it. And therefore, you have less chance of getting injured. You will have a clearer mind. You'll feel out of your own way. This is what I'm saying. It's about the brain and body aligning themselves together. That's the definition of being out of your own way. You're in your own way when your brain is trying to correct things and compensate and interfere because the body hasn't moved in the way that it's appropriate for the shot it's trying to hit. Does that make sense? So when we get them aligned, you're out of your own way. Your mind is quieter. Of course, finally, it's just a much more enjoyable game of golf. It's not such hard work. Okay. All right. So let me again come in here. This is going to be now. We're going to get a little bit practical. Okay. So there is one thing. In fact, I'm going to bring that up in case you didn't get it. I'm just going to show you that message again. I want you to learn to move your body weight in an organized way. Now, look what it says at the top, the human approach of the one thing. This is the Holy Grail, I believe. And what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about this one thing a little bit now, and then you're going to get practical shortly by understanding the 4 movements that give you this one thing. Okay, so it really, like I said, it is almost one thing that you've got to get right, and then I'll show you the 4 things that allow that one thing to happen. So getting your body weight organized and structured in a way is the one thing. If you can do that, then you will bring a level of organization and coordination to your swing for you. Again, we spoke already about the fact that every swing is going to look different. But when you look at the best players, the commonality for me that I'm interested in is this ability to organize their weight and move their weight in the right way. Okay, and let me make this now practical for you. If I had a wall in front of me here, I had just an object actually. If I had an object here and I was pushing it towards you, okay, I'm pushing this object towards you. I'm behind it, I'm in line with it. Here's the object. I'm going to push it towards you, okay? What would I want my body weight doing? I want my body weight moving in that direction, okay? So let's say it's here now, okay? I would want my body weight moving in that direction. Can you see that? Moving there to have the most effective push and the most effective control, okay? So let's say, for example, this object was on wheels. If I moved my body weight in that way, the object would only move forward towards you. It would move in a straight line. Now, let's compare that to a couple other things. If I'm pushing here, and as I push, my body weight goes over there too far to the left, okay? My body weight starts to go here. Can you see that actually my ability to control this thing I'm pushing is not going to be as good? It's actually going to put a different strain through my body. I'm not going to be as powerful, and I'm not going to be able to control it as much, okay? I do that from this way here, another way. If I was to send my body weight just up this way too much or more than I need to push that, can you see again, I'm not going to get the same level of force and control and power into that thing I'm trying to push, okay? If I was to go the other way, if I was to my body weight was to go over here, can you see again, I can't put that same force on. So organizing your body weight and moving your body weight in the way it needs to play the shot is the fundamental thing. Okay, now let's put that into a golfing context here. Okay, so if I'm going to hit a golf ball towards you here, and as I'm hitting that golf ball towards you, if my body weight, and let me just clarify one thing, by the way, your center of mass is really, think of it as the center of your body in your pelvis area here. So your center of mass is probably the most important thing to identify with. And we're going to come to this a little bit later. How it works on top of your feet is really what you're going to learn to do. That's what's going to transform your golf shots for you and your ability to strike the ball at the center. So now, if I'm coming in to hit the ball towards you here, but as I'm coming in, the direction and energy of my body weight is what we're looking at. The same way I push it, it's the direction and energy of my body weight. If my body weight is going back over here, so going towards my heels, okay, let me just lower myself down a little more so you can hopefully see me a little better, okay. So if my body weight is now going backwards towards my heels there, so my body weight is moving in this direction, can you see how that's going to influence what the club's going to do? Okay, I'm obviously trying to exaggerate to show. It's going to influence it here. If my body weight is going towards my toes, in other words, my body weight is going this way, as I'm hitting the ball, can you see the effect that's going to have on my golf swing here? I'm going to get this early extension here, okay? If I left my body weight too far on my right foot, can you see that actually it's probably going to have a similar effect? My body weight is staying back here on the right. It's going to open up a space for me to swing into here, Okay, and that's actually another very important thing that ties in with this ability to control move body weight. So straight away, I hope what you're seeing already is that if you can learn to move and organize your body weight in the right way when you're swinging, it brings the rest of the body together, because our center of mass is here in our pelvis area. Wherever this goes, whatever it does, above and below is being changed and affected as well. So when we talk about coordination, if we can actually get our center of our mass moving properly in the appropriate way, above and below will start to coordinate with that. And that's when the golf swing begins to feel easier. When in the same way in my demonstration, I was pushing an object towards you, but my body weight was going to the left, it's awkward on the body. I'm having to try and compensate. Now I'm putting force through the shoulder to move that object, which will create a strain, could create an injury. It's harder to do compared to here, okay? So I hope you're already seeing that as you begin to move the body weight in the right way, you start to coordinate above and below. It makes the golf swing far easier. All right, so there's a few examples that I've given you there of why that body weight is very, very important, okay? So I'm going to bring up in a moment a slide which is going to talk about some different shots. So let me just go through some of those now. When you are moving your body well, when you've moved it in an organized way, there are, as I said, there are 4 movements. In fact, I'll bring those up now. There are 4 movements that your body goes through. So let's go through that now, and then I'll actually go through some of the shots as well that we want to, I want to address and bring up a little bit here. Okay, so I've talked a lot about, are your brain and body aligned? Okay, and I spoke about that from a pitching perspective. Okay, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail in a moment. Here are the 4 movements in order for you to be able to organize your body weight in the way I've just described, so that you can bring coordination by your body weight moving properly. There are 4 things your body needs to be able to do. Okay. One is the rotation of the joints, and you might think that's a pretty obvious one, okay? But I'm going to say something in a moment related to that. One is the rotation of joints. 2 is the ability to vary the range of movement, okay? Now, what that means is that in the golf swing, not everything moves the same amount, okay? My hips will move a different amount to my knees, to my ankles, to my spine, okay? So the ability for the body to vary its a range of movement through different areas of the body is an important factor. The ability for the spine to side bend. Now, this is often a forgotten part. We think of turning, which I'll come on to in a moment. We don't think of side bending, okay? Let me actually, I'll bring myself into a fuller range here so you can see that, and I'll demonstrate it with our club first of all. I'll put my head back on the shot there. So, a side bend, here is my spine, fairly neutral in my setup, in other words, fairly vertical. If I'm going to use my body in the way it's designed from an anatomy perspective, what will happen is, it's appropriate to hit that shot. What will happen is, as I rotate, which we spoke about when rotating, we talked about different areas of the body moving different amounts. What will happen is my spine will actually take on this shape here. It will get, if you can see that, it's like here, like a curve. There is a side bend going on in the spine. That is critical from your ability to stay in your posture, your ability to be able to hold yourself in your posture at the same angle. Okay, it's essential for that spine to be able to side bend. Compare that to sometimes turning, where you can see I'm coming out of that structure, out of that posture. That makes sense. So the side bend is really, really important. So that's something that we absolutely need to get. Now, the final one, the 4th one, is the structure, i.e. your body, being able to change height. This, again, is one that's often forgotten. Think about it this way. So I'll come back to my analogy here with the pitching, because this is really where it ties in. I said about the importance of the brain and body being aligned. All right. So go back to the idea of we want precision in the pitching. So what does the golf club do to be able to play a good pitch shot? It starts behind the ball. It needs to swing up in the air and back down again on the correct plane. Yeah, that's what it needs to do. It needs to go up and down. Right, let's keep it really simple. In order for that club to go up and down, parts of your body need to go up and down. Now, the most obvious place that most people think of for that is the wrists, okay, and their arms. So, oh yeah, that's fine. I want the club to go up and down. Therefore, I'm going to hinge my wrist and let the arms go up and down to do that. Okay, yes, that's fine. However, your wrists and your arms are not the foundation. They are a layer on the foundation. So if you don't know how to get your structure as an entirety to change height, you are layering a movement of the hands and arms on top of something that's not solid. Now you're open to risk. Now you're open to having to compensate because the brain goes, hang on a minute, I know the shot I want to play, or you've asked me to play. I can't do it properly because you've just changed the ball position. The ball's just moved because your structure has moved. Okay, so let me just go into that in a little bit of detail because this is quite key. All right, so I wonder if I can get a ball to stay still on the ground. You may not be able to see it, but let's just try for a moment. Okay, you won't. I can't get it to stay still anyway. Doesn't matter. So I'm set up to play this pitch shot here. I've got a 40-yard pitch shot, let's say, okay? Let's assume I'm in a great posture position for it. My brain goes, that's great, Scott. You're all lined up for that shot. I've got no problem with what you're doing, okay? If I then move in the appropriate way, which I've just said about changing height, in other words, it's not just the hands and arms, that my structure, so my knees, my pelvis are changing height. One side's going up, if you watch, one side's going down. Can you see that with my hands? As I move, one side's going up, one side's going down, okay? If I am doing that during the movement here, then what happens is I stay perfectly in the original structure and the original posture that I'm in. And guess what my brain does? My brain goes, brilliant, don't need me, I don't need to interfere. You are still moving in an appropriate way to play that shot, and that ball, based on everything, has not moved. In other words, there's no alarm bells going off in the brain's head. I can now just come back and hit that shot. Now, compare that to this. I don't have the up and down movement of my structure. I turn. I might get my wrist going up and down to get the club here, but I'll show you from here, but I've now turned, okay, there. Okay, so I can get the wrist going, but I've turned my body. Now my structure is to level. It hasn't changed height. Now the brain is saying, whoa, hang on a minute. Based on what you've done, I think the ball must be over there somewhere now. But I can see it's not. My eyes are telling me it's there, but my structure is saying it's over here. And now there's confusion. Now the brain and body are no longer aligned. They're not. They're mismatching. And the brain is interfering, going, I've got to help compensate. I've got to get other things going on here because that ball doesn't seem to be where it originally was. You're not moving in the appropriate way anymore for me. I've got to help out. And that's where we get this lot of brain noise going on in our head. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. It really shows up in pitching, but it's relevant to all shots as well. But that change of structure of height is important. So let me bring that up again for you here now. Okay, so you've got the 4 things to look at. Okay, so number 1, rotation of the joints. It's probably a fairly obvious one. Number 2, the ability to vary the range of motion. We want to be able to get, I call it segregation sometimes. We want different parts of our body doing different amounts. We need to be able to have a side bend in our spine. We're going to come back to that. We need to be able to have height change in our structure. Okay. If you build your swing based on these movements, you will align your brain and body. That's what will happen. You'll align your brain and body, okay, in the demonstration I've just given. Remember this saying, joints act, muscles react. We are working with your structure here. Everything we're going through is joint related. Rotation, variation of range of motion in the joint, the side bending of the joints in the spine, the height change in your structure of the joint. Everything is about the joint movement. The muscles then react to that. Okay, so just try and get that sensation and that understanding. You're moving your joints, muscles are reacting. Versus turning, and I'm just picking on turning. is maybe one of the most common pieces of advice we hear in golf, but possibly the most misleading one. And I'm going to, again, let me just bring this in. I just think it causes so much confusion. For some people, it helps. And there's no doubt some people go, well, Scott, I've worked on turning. I've worked on turning, and that's helped me hit the ball better. It may well have done, because it maybe created a better range of movement that gave you more time in the swing. That's what I'm saying. I'm not here to say other approaches have a place sometimes. What I'm here to say to you, in my research of how the body needs to move to bring the brain and body together, that's my interest. Can we bring the brain and body together to quieten things down? If we can do that, turning is often a very misleading term, because what is a turn? Okay, this is turning. That's turning without using my feet. That's turning with my feet. Both are a very level, horizontal thing. If somebody said to you, Scott, turn to me, you wouldn't go like this. You would just turn. So I think it's very misleading, because what happens is we end up coming out of our structure. In a turn, based on those four things, in a turn, there is not a side bend, okay? There is not necessarily a separation of the varying movements of the joints, because actually I might turn everything together, okay, here. And there is not a change of height. The only one thing out of those four in a turn is the rotation of the joints. That's why I think the idea of trying to turn can really mess you up and really mislead you in terms of actually using your body in the way it's designed to move. So that makes sense. So let me just go through it one more time. I think it's important. So how we know of a turn, the joint structure that goes into invariably only has one thing, and that is the rotation. Okay, there. Okay, and likely that a lot of the things will move a similar amount. There might be a little bit of separation. There certainly won't be a side bend. In that here, there's really no side bend in there, because I'm not in my posture of the ball, and there's no height change. So that's why it can be misleading. So my encouragement to you is that if you want to learn to put the human back into your golf swing, then what you need to do is to learn to get your joints to move in a way that is appropriate for the golf shot you're trying to play. That's appropriate for making a golf swing. Basically, that's it. These are the four movements I'm recommending you've got to be able to practice. Okay, that's really what it is we're trying to do. Okay, now I'm going to give you ways to practice these at home in a moment. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. All right, now let me just quickly, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly bring the, should we say, the traditional and then the human approach together based on some of these shots here. When I use the pitching as an analogy, so let me just bring myself back in here. I use the pitching as an analogy. When I move, when I use those four things, when I have the rotation, when I have the side bend, when I have the change of height, okay, when I have the segregation for a pitch here, my brain and body are aligned, and then I perform the shot very quietly in my mind, okay? What happens in doing that, when I use those four movements I've just gone through in there, so let me just take a couple of points here. When I stay in my structure, in my posture, and I create this nice side bend in my spine here, what happens is I stay in the angles of my posture, and providing I stay in that, or providing I stay in the structure and get a side bend on the way down. So I've talked about on the way back here, you do it this way here. Okay, I've now got a side bend going this way. When I do it appropriately on the way down, I've now got a side bend going this way. Okay, my spine, you can see that now, my spine is bending here. Okay, my head hasn't moved out of position, but the spine underneath it has gone from that shape to that shape, okay? That side bend, okay, and I'm going to give you exercises to feel this. That side bend has the effect of keeping the shoulders into the structure. It has the effect of keeping that right, for me, a right-handed golfer, that right arm next to my body for longer. It holds the wrist back better. And therefore, I'm much more compact, I'm much more organized. As a result of that, I get a much better release, that right arm straight into the right time there. Now, just think about that one thing. Watch that again. When I move and side bend properly here, can you see how compact I look coming down here? Think of all the things that potentially gets rid of that I just put on the screen. The over the top is here, okay? The early extension is here, okay? The releasing early is here. All of those things, can you see that as I begin to put in place those 4 movements, as my body begins to get more able to do those 4 movements, what happens is I start to dissolve and eradicate many swing faults. So that is why I say I don't like to work on golf swings per se. I like to work on movement because I know when I help you get a better movement, your golf swing will begin to change. And so the golf swing, again, what I see on the golf swing is superficial. When I go to the movement and help you do the movement better, the golf swing changes. Can you see that through my demonstration there? Okay, that's really quite key. So with pitching, the demonstration I'm going already, when I get this nice height change in my structure, you know, for me as a right-handed golfer, my left side goes down, my right side goes up. Now my club, my arms and body are all doing the same thing. There's no need to try and set the wrist because it's just going to work that way much better. I'm going to say, obviously, how you hold it makes a difference. We're not going to cover that in this presentation, but I'm going to work on the basis you know how that works, okay, how you hold it better. But what's going to happen is there's no need for me to try and do anything special with my hands and my wrist. I'm actually not even feeling them per se because they're so connected to the overall structure, that compact swing, that they're going to come through and play that shot well. So it's going to correct many things. So again, rather than you having to look at the golf swing and look at the positions and the detail and trying to change all of that, my proposal is I don't like doing that as much as I can. I avoid that as much as possible to actually help you understand movement and the 4 key movements, which lead to the one key thing, which is managing your weight properly. If you do that, so much starts to change. And the exciting thing for me is that you can keep working on those 4 things. You can keep working on those 4 things to lead to better efficiency, that one thing of controlling and moving your body weight properly. And as you do that, that's when you can keep getting better and better and better because it simplifies, your confidence grows. Your confidence grows just from hitting the sweet spot much more often. And we all know that with confidence, a lot more happens anyway, okay? So, all right, so let's just bring that, that back up again. And so some of the shots that, as I say, it's like you don't have to worry about the detail of every shot that goes wrong. Just stick to the fundamentals and this stuff will begin to dissolve. And we all know, by the way, don't we, that we all know that actually, you know, one particular movement in the golf swing could create different types of shots. It's not as black and white as that, okay? So that's, again, another reason why I like to work on the movement. Okay, so prime your body and wake it up with the 4 movements. Okay, so let's go through now. I'm going to give you a way of practicing some of these things at home, because here is the thing. In order for you to be able to make these movements, okay, in order for you to be able to make these movements in the golf swing, the first thing really you want to be able to do is, can I actually even make the movements? Because the reality is all of us have different lifestyles. You know, we're not, probably most of us are not doing yoga, you know, for a couple of hours a day. Probably most of us are not walking in, you know, miles and miles, apart from we may be playing golf. And sometimes you do that in a buggy. So we're not necessarily as mobile as we were when we were children. And therefore our body starts to change. So the first starting point here is, if you are interested in being able to incorporate these 4 movements into your golf swing, the starting point is, can I actually even do the movements? Let's just start there and practice those things. And then you're priming your body. You're warming the body up, if you like, to be able to do them, master them away from the golf course, and then they're more chance of them coming into the golf course. I'm going to finish with one exercise with a golf club, which is going to try and tie us together. It's a bit of a fast track for you, because obviously I'm not with you personally. It's going to be a bit of a fast track for you at the end. But first of all, the movements, okay? So let's just go for a rotation first of all. So number one, rotation. What you're going to do is all of these, by the way, though you won't see my feet all the time, about hip width apart. So there's your hips there. Just always try and bring your feet pretty straight underneath there. So not too wide, okay? So if I just quickly give you a sense of that there. So it's a pretty narrow stance. Most people, when I say hip width, are normally wider, just somewhere around there, okay? That's roughly where we want to be. All right, now, so rotation number one. There's many ways of doing this. Again, just for the sake of this presentation, I'm just going to give you one way of doing it. And what I'm going to ask you to do from there is I'm going to ask you to bring your hand up with your palm facing the sky, so your elbows down. And what you're going to do is you're going to let your arm just go around in a circle, level to the ground, and let the rest of the body just wait, not resist, just wait. And then eventually you'll feel your shoulders starting to go, then you'll feel your spine starting to go, then you'll feel your hips starting to go, okay, and then your knees and your ankles and your feet, okay? I've just about caught the wall behind me, so I'm just going to do that again, okay? So there, let it go. Now it's catching me. I'm bringing my spine around, then my hips, and then my feet, okay, into that position there. Now, when you do that, by the way, and I will show you this now close up, obviously you're going to do it on both sides, is that you will, towards the end of the range of the movement here, I'm going through it now, is my foot starts to change shape. That's really quite important to allow that to happen. Not that you want the foot coming off the ground, you don't. You want the foot to stay in contact with the ground, but it will, of what we call supinated. This is the right foot here. It would have changed shape a little bit, all right? Now, the other thing is, as you go through the movement, is it's very important. Remember the Holy Grail? Controlling body weight, okay? So as I go through this movement here, and again, I hope you're doing this along with me now, is that as I go to there, now my weight is predominantly over the foot I've traveled towards. So in my case, the right foot here. My weight is predominantly over there, okay? And then I'm coming back. So really just putting a nice rotation in there in an organized way, letting the arm go first, letting it collect the rest of the body, and then bringing it around. And by the way, as you can see here, I'm taking my head with me. Don't leave your head here. I know in golf we think of keeping the head still, but I want you, as it goes through, I want your head to follow and look where your hand has gone there. Okay, you can actually follow it all the way around if you want as you go there. Okay, some of you may find that easier to follow the hand movement. That's fine. And then obviously do the same on the other side. Okay. Next one is about trying to get varying amounts of movement in the body. Okay, and so this one here, and by the way, if you want me to, if you would like separate videos on these movements, just let me know, email me, I'll put it in the chat, and I'm happy to organize that. I'll do something, put them together as a little collection that you can have them. Now we're going to separate, get varying degrees of movement. Okay, the way we're going to do this, the way I like to do it, put your hands on your chest here, and think of your belt buckle, if you've got a belt buckle here, and what we're going to do is just simply move the hips around. So I'm going to go to my right again here, and I'm going to move them around, but you can see how my chest has not really followed it, okay? So I'm just learning to move this first, then my chest. Notice my eyes are still on you, on the camera, and then my head. Okay? So I'm doing the three kind of main parts here, like pelvis, spine, neck. Now, once you're there, you can then come back in reverse order. Okay, so you're ready? So we go pelvis, spine, neck. Now, neck, spine, pelvis, okay? Go very slowly and do that way. Now, it's tricky. This is a bit like rubbing your tummy and patting your head at the same time, trying to hold one part, move another part. But this is really key. Again, we want your ability to be able to control different parts of the body. We want to be able to access that. And so, as I said, if you can't, there's no point in trying to do it in the golf swing if you can't do it in a normal situation like here. So that's what we're doing. So that's number two. Number three, the side bend. Okay, so this one here is a real one for feeling weight transfer as well. So once again, feet hip width apart. Imagine you've got 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock on the clock face. and all we're going to do is send our pelvis in one direction. So I'll go this way here now. So I'm going to send my pelvis towards 9 o'clock, and my eyes, by the way, stay on the horizon. So my eyes stay at you on the camera. So do it in the mirror is good, and just here. Okay, and all I'm doing is sending my pelvis over there. All right, now I'll show you this way first as well, because what's important, we don't want rotation in it. All we want is just the pelvis going straight in that 9 o'clock direction there. Okay, so no rotation. If your rotation goes slower, and see if you can reduce that rotation. Okay, again, all these exercises, if you feel any pain or discomfort, just stop. Okay, that's something else you're going to need to look at, but just stop if you feel any pain or discomfort. But as long as you don't, just send that pelvis towards 9 o'clock here, eyes on the horizon. Now, what you'll notice is, look how this side has gone very heavy and low. Let that go heavy there, but my eyes here, I don't want my head to have done that. Okay. Now it's happening. You may get a slight stretch down this neck where the low side is, okay? But can you see my spine has now got this nice side bending here? All my weight now is on my left foot, okay? So I'm going to go the other way now, because this is a really key exercise. Send the pelvis down to 3 o'clock. My eyes stay on the horizon, okay? Side bending my spine this way. This side's nice and heavy, possibly a little stretch here. If you do this in a mirror, what we're looking for is it to be symmetrical. In other words, the amount you go one way, you can go the same amount the other way. Okay, go very slow again. Take your time with it. You may find that actually you can only get this far one way, and there's not much of a side bend, but this way you can go a long way. You can, again, go very slow and steady as long as it doesn't hurt, and just gradually practice this side a little bit more. And try to move from here. When I work with clients on this, sometimes they go like this, and it's come from the top half, not from here. Again, we're not used to using and controlling our pelvis. So learn to move from there. Okay, that's why a mirror is useful, is you can see what you're doing. So that movement will put a side bend in. All these things, again, are going to help you with your body a lot anyway, never mind the goal soon. That's number 3. Number 4, now we're looking for the change in height and structure. I'm going to make this one a bit more golf related. So what we're going to do is I'm going to say to you, again, into your setup, into your posture, I'm going to, again, work on the basis you know good posture. And I'm going to ask you to put the corner of your hand here into your hip joint, okay? So some nice, actually, they kind of fit together quite nicely, actually, in the shape, into there, like that. Can you see that? Okay. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do, this is a very small movement. Move very small and slow. And all I'm going to ask you to do is now to just keep them attached, and just gently let, in my case, the left side go down, the right side go up. So you can hopefully see that in my hands, okay? Then the right side down a little bit, left side up. You can see how small I'm moving. It's not a big movement, okay? I don't want you straining or putting too much effort. There and there. Okay, now, notice, by the way, it's not going around here. That's a turn. We don't want to turn. We want a change of height. Okay, we don't want to turn. Okay, I know that's unusual here in golf, but we do not want to turn. We want to change the height there. Can you see the difference? And a change of height there. Okay, so we're beginning to put that change of height into the structure as well. Okay, so you've got those 4 things that if you can do that, you're really starting to prime the body to be able to get those movements, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Now, again, any questions, just throw them into the chat. All right, now, the key feedback through all of this, okay, is organizing and moving your body weight, which we've said, but on top of your feet, okay? So let me come back in again. When you learn to organize and move your body weight well, your proprioceptions, if you like, or your proprioceptors are the feet. They can tell what's going on, and they will give you great feedback if you pay attention to them, okay? So we're going to do a fast-track drill in a moment, fast-track movement to help you with that. So this is going to tie together the movements we've just done. It's going to tie together my pushing analogy of moving body weight in the right direction to feel where that needs to go, okay? And quite simply, what I'm going to ask you to do is to make some slow motion swings and really feeling what's going on with your body weight on your feet. That's what we're going to try and do, okay? Now, I'm going to bring up a slide. In fact, I'm going to show you a slide actually now. Let me just bring you to that to give you an image for the feet, which I think is really helpful. This is what we refer to as the tripod foot. When you're on your feet well, these are the three areas of the foot that you will feel pressure against the ground with, those three areas there. Now, in a movement like the golf swing, that will vary slightly where it favors on those 3 points, but it will always be on those 3 points. They'll always all be in contact with the ground in an ideal way, okay? But it just will vary slightly, okay? The simplest way, though, for now, the simplest way is to think of it being pretty consistent on those three. That will simplify it for now, okay? So that's just have that image in your mind as we go through. So if I go through the movement here now, all right? So what we'd actually start with, we'll start with the club across our chest. We get into our posture position here, okay? In this posture position here. And I'm going to ask you to, first of all, make sure you bring your attention to the feet and the pressure they are on the ground. I'm doing it barefoot, by the way. At home, I would highly recommend doing it barefoot because you get better feedback, better feeling. And so you want to feel like you're nice and even on both feet on those 3 points on both feet. Okay, now, as you wind up, okay, here, as I wind up, okay, if I'm controlling and moving my body weight well, what's going to happen is I'm going to feel some weight shifted onto the right foot, okay, for me. That's where I've just moved to here. And again, just for now, think of it staying pretty evenly on those 3 points, okay? Let's just simplify it for that now. It's not literally what happens, but it's enough for now. Now, most of us can do that pretty well. Here's the important one. As I come through, that weight's now going to shift to my left foot, to those 3 points, and I want it to feel again as if it's staying pretty close to those 3 points as I go through. Only go through as far as you feel like it's going to stay pretty much on those 3 points, okay? If I keep going, yes, it definitely will go towards the heel point more. It will do that. But again, I want you to work slow and steady for now. Slow and steady. I want to lay our foundations. If I can't get you to feel this movement and you start to actually connect with this feeling, we're going to struggle. This is your foundation. So therefore, it's more important that you have feelings that are useful rather than worrying about every nth degree of what truly is happening, okay? So once again, start with your balance even between both feet and be aware of those 3 points of contact on both feet. From there, allow yourself to wind up and you should feel that deep connection with your feet in the ground, but now slightly more favoring the right side, okay? Now, as you come through, it starts to move from the right into the left a little bit, building up in the left. Only goes far, but again, feels those 3 points of contact are down. Now, what you might notice as you do this, it will start to reorganize how your pelvis moves. If you've been somebody that has really gone into your left heel a lot, this is one of the problems I get to sometimes, where I straighten out and go into my left heel, but my weight is traveling too sharp in that direction over there. I'm now not on those 3 points of contact. Whereas if I can actually go slower and feel that, now my body weight is going forward and around this way. Forward and around this way. And that's an important point, actually. Go back to my analogy earlier of pushing, okay? In the golf swing, I'm pushing something here, but I'm sideways onto it. So just that push will give me something. If I show you from this end, just a lateral shift will give me some strength, actually quite a lot of strength. But if I can combine the lateral with that rotation, controlling the body, then I'm much more powerful. Does that make sense? So in my analogy here, by feeling what's going on your feet, what I'm doing with that body weight is it's moving forward, but rotating at the same time here. But all those 4 movements of the body are essential to allow that to happen. The better you do them, the easier this will begin to happen, okay? So that push this way has got some weight going towards my left foot in my case, but there's a rotation here. But now at that point, it's very organized over that left foot. My weight is organized. Think of that term. It's organized over those 3 points of contact, okay? At that point there, now I have controlled and moved my body weight, okay? That's going to bring organization to the rest of my structure, my arms, my shoulders, my spine, and therefore I'm going to end up with that much, much more compact golf swing. So that's your fast track exercise that actually is going to give you that feeling, or you can use your feet as feedback to know where I am. And if you can feel those 3 points of contact on your feet and moving your weight in the right way, using my pushing analogy, you start to bring an organization to your body and to your whole structure that will give you this desirable compact golf swing, where suddenly, you know, if you think about it, it's your hands and arms that cause a lot of the problem to swing, because again, I can move that club a lot with my wrists and my hands, and therefore that can create a lot of variation in my golf shots. Whereas when they are nice and compact and working with my body, they quieten down a lot. And when they quieten down a lot, therefore there's not much variation. And as a result of that, I end up, you know, with a lot more control on the golf shot. So the one thing, the holy grail, is that ability to be able to control, move body weight in the right way. There's 4 movements you need in order for that to happen. And they're the 4 movements we've gone through: the ability to rotate, the ability to separate movement, the ability to side bend, and the ability to change height. Practice those movements away from the golf balls first to get your body even used to doing it, because it may not be used to doing it. Then start to do the extra done. You can start to feel that movement coming into the golf swing. All right. So again, just a couple more bits to go through. That's been helpful. All right. So let me just bring, there's the image again of the feet. Okay. All right. Now, if you have found this useful and you are curious as to this approach that I call putting the human back into golf, would you just give me a few minutes of your time to share with you an opportunity which I think you might find interesting? The opportunity to truly master these movements and make sure that you can integrate them into your brain properly. Would that be okay? Okay, if I could just take a couple of minutes of your time just to share something with you, I hope that would be okay. So if it is, what I would love you to do is to look into the opportunity of spending 3 days with me. I have a program, my signature program, called the Intuitive Golf Experience, where you literally will learn these principles and learn to integrate them, and it will change your golf forever. I'm certain of that. It's 3 days, so you get fully immersed in it. It's not just on the practice ground. You get to play actually on the course each day. Because again, when you're moving well, you can start to adapt to these things pretty quickly, and it applies to all areas of the game. So we make sure you apply it to all areas of the game. You will learn in detail everything we've gone through, but you'll personalize it to you. I'm there. The class size is strictly limited, so it's very small numbers, so that I get to work with you on a one-to-one basis to make sure. Because you can imagine everybody can do certain things a little easier than other things. And so therefore, there's always that degree of personalization to make sure that you get to apply what's right for you. But you will literally get a blueprint of how to develop your swing. You'll start to change it in those 3 days quite significantly. You'll get your own personalized program at the end of that. And that, I really think, can literally change your game forever. So if that sounds of interest to you, I have a very special offer for you. But first of all, just a few of the comments from people that have really embraced this human experience. And these are very recent comments. Let me just quickly whiz through this. The first one from Matthew Squire. What you've taught me in these lessons has made the biggest impact on my game ever. I have significantly improved the strike at a distance across the bag. In just my second round after lessons, I scored subpar, which has not happened for 20 years. And I've been suffering with back issues for the last 2 years, brought on only when I played golf. Since working with Scott, and only then have I had 0 back issues after playing. In fact, my back feels looser. Again, I can't promise that for everybody, but just moving more effectively really can help the body. So again, we'll just go through these, and I've got a special offer for you to show you in a moment. This gentleman here, he had the virtual lessons, but obviously the same principles. I've had lessons with many of the world's famous teachers on both golf, swing, and the mental game. But after my virtual lessons with you, yours is the approach I always go back to when trying to improve my golf. This gentleman here, very recent experience again. Afternoon, Scott, just a quick text this was. Just an update. Feel loads better, more comfortable around, hitting my irons better. Driver was so much better, as was chipping. So again, just evidence that goes through the whole game. I feel we're getting somewhere. I'll keep practicing and speak soon. This gentleman was at his wit's end with his game, and just within a few sessions has started to be able to get a better experience across his whole game. My handicap has been cut 3.1 down to 10.5. It's down to the fundamentals that you gave me during the course of lessons. I'm able to recognize what I've done and not done on a particular shot, and therefore I'm able to correct this going forward. This allows me to keep a quiet mind that keeps me playing better. It appears you can teach an old dog new tricks. That's from Neil Ashton, who came on the Intuitive Golf Experience. Actually, he's been on it twice now because he just likes to come back and actually keep going through those fundamentals. So again, if this sounds of interest to you, I would love the opportunity to work with you personally. And therefore, I'd love, as a thank you for listening to this presentation, to give you a special offer. And here's the special offer. If you mention this webinar, I'll show you how you can get in touch in a moment. But if you would love to join me, you mention this webinar, you will save £100 on the list price. So bearing in mind, these programs are held in different places, UK, Spain, Portugal. So it depends, where you're going from, what that price is going to be, but you'll save £100 at list price by letting me know. Plus, I will give you a month's free coaching on the back of it, which is normally valued at £297. That's the way that works is basically you have unlimited coaching during that month through sending me videos. We have a special app we work with. You put your videos on, I give you feedback, etc. It's to really make sure you stay on track. So once you've done the 3 days, you then absolutely make sure you stay on track with that as well. Okay, so that's a special bonus as a thank you for listening to this program. Now, the program coming up, the first one that's available at the moment is in PGA Catalunya in Spain, just north of Barcelona. Absolutely amazing resort. And that is November the 22nd to 24th, 2002. Again, they're the bonuses you'll get. You're £100 off the list price and you'll get a month's free coaching valued at £297. If that is of interest, just get in touch or drop it in the chat bar here, but just email me, scott@scottcranfield.com. Let me know your interest, mention this webinar. We will get in touch. I like to speak to everybody before they commit to coming on the program because I want to make sure you fully understand what's involved. I want to make sure that I can help you. So I need to hear a bit about your story as well. And I would just love to have you there. As I said at the beginning, the changes this is making to people's golf is literally profound. I love the experience of it. I love helping people in this way, simplifying their golf, clearing their mind, getting their brain and body aligned to help them get much better results. So if you'd love to do that, please get in touch, scott@scottcranfield.com. Let me know you'd like to come. Even if you can't make that date, by the way, but you're interested, there are other dates coming up in different venues. So just let me know that you would be interested in other dates. You can't make that one, and I will keep you in the loop and let you know. And that offer will apply to anyone you book. All you've got to do is let me know that you joined me on this webinar. Thank you for watching. Let's have a look at some questions. Just give me a moment. I'm just going to take this away and then I will just have a look through some of the questions. As I said, if I don't get your question, I will have a look at them all and I'll make sure I find a way of giving you some feedback on them. So just hold on a second.